Sometimes we're not happy with our lives and we want to make a change. Maybe you want to change your career. Maybe you want to change where you live or who you live with. But there are so many obstacles, it can feel like it's too late. Like you've already invested too much time and energy getting where you are now to move in a different direction. But you can't stop thinking about it. It keeps running loops in your mind. You won't be happy if you stay the same. So if we know we want to change, why don't we just do it? When I was 32, I did something a little crazy. I started a career as a sailor working on research and expedition ships around the world, and I loved it. I've never felt more alive than when the seas were rough, waves crashing against the bow, and me out on deck battling the elements. Here's a fun fact for all you land lovers out there. And the BIMCO Seafarer Work Report showed that in 2021, women made up only 1.2% of the seafarer workforce. Isn't that crazy? In 2021, women made up only 1.2% of the entire global seafarer workforce, which made me the only woman on some of my ships, and the first one on a few of them. So I started making videos and posting them online to show women representation at sea. If I had seen women doing this before, I would have done this like right out of high school. Now, on one especially important mission, we were making our way to a deep sea research location near the equator. Our objective? To obtain a special sediment from the sea floor. Sediment, by the way, is just a fancy way of saying sea mud. And this sea mud was really hard to get. So hard, in fact, that every collection attempt took over 10 hours. Now, at a cost of $40,000 a day, we literally couldn't afford to fail. The mood on deck was incredibly tense. We would begin the operation by lowering our collection tubes on this big metal cone called a multi-core, 15,000 feet down to reach the sea floor. Every time the equipment made its way back up to the surface, we were all holding our breath, hoping we got something. But every time, those collection tubes came up empty. Finally, after a few days, the collection tubes came back on deck with every sample bottle full. The scientists and sailors were losing it. They were clapping and cheering and even doing little happy dances. I thought to myself, this is the perfect moment to capture on video. I want to show the world the camaraderie between the scientists and sailors working together towards the same goal. This is what the world needs to see. But I missed it. Yeah. I missed recording the biggest moment of the trip because I was stuck operating the crane. Something in me changed that day. Where I used to fall asleep easily, thinking about what the next day at sea would bring, now I found myself tossing and turning, wide awake, thinking about all the things I could film the next day. The angles, the lighting, the cool scenes I could capture. And realizing that all this work as a sailor, it was starting to get in the way of what I really wanted to do. I wanted to be a science videographer. Now, don't get me wrong, being a sailor is an incredible career and I highly recommend it to anyone. But a new fire had been lit. And for the next 3 years, I kept wanting to make the leap from sailor to science videographer. But even after I built my own video production company, complete with a website, business cards, social media followers, and a ton of rave reviews, something was still holding me back from leaving my life as a sailor. So what holds us back when we know we need to make a change? Well, in my case, it was a few things. First, money. Yeah, I was afraid I couldn't afford to do it. I didn't have a lot of my savings, and becoming a full-time videographer would mean my stability was gone. But I also knew if I set my mind to it, I could put aside enough money to hold me over. So money wasn't it. Of course, I was afraid of failure. What if I wasn't as good as I thought I was? What if I couldn't get anyone to hire me? Thinking about that kind of stuff, it really did scare me. But I also knew I had not wasted all those years on the ships. I had built a solid reputation, and there were tons of ships that would gladly take me back if my filmmaking dreams fell through. So failure wasn't it either. Now, if I'm being totally honest, there was that little voice in the back of my head going, hey, are things really that bad? I mean, I thought we've been having a pretty good time these last few years. Why don't you just keep doing what you're doing and focus on what you love about it. Would that really be so bad? Maybe not. But when I thought about myself, 20 years from now, up in the bridge driving the ship, I didn't like what I was seeing. This is going to sound a little dramatic, but this is how it felt for me at the time. When I thought about future me, about her unseen videography dream, all that regret, and how not taking that one leap of faith could cause a chain reaction of not taking chances and possibly closing many doors with incredible opportunities behind them. I knew that future me would not be happy. And it also made me think about what life would be like if I hadn't taken the chance to become a sailor in the first place. That was even scarier, because working at sea had literally opened up the world for me. All the adventures I've had, amazing people I've met, and incredible locations I've seen, gone. It would all be gone if I hadn't taken that one chance. No, I could never forgive myself for being too afraid to do this. I had to say yes to this. So, once I got rid of all those excuses, why was I still holding on to being a sailor so much? What was it I was afraid I was going to miss? And then it hit me. Sometimes, when I met people, they would take my bubbly nature and girly appearance as a reason to underestimate me and not take me very seriously. But when they found out what I did for a living, everything changed. People would say, "Wow, you do what? You're such a badass." Bingo. That was it. And I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but we're friends now. I feel like I can share. I had just realized I really like being known as a badass. Now, I know that sounds a little silly. Let me explain. Sailor equaled hardcore. And science videographer, it just didn't have the same edge or depth to it, you know? And I was not about to walk away from these ships and leave all my hard-earned badassery on them. Without that title, who even was I? Nobody I wanted to be. Because the sad truth is, to get respect and be taken seriously, it seemed like this needed to be a sailor. And I didn't want to give that up. I'm sure you can understand. So, I was feeling this way until one day, while I was scrolling through social media like we do, and I came across this feminist post of a woman videographer, just like I wanted to be, standing up for other women's rights. I literally said out loud to myself, "Wow, what a badass." Hold up. Did I just call this videographer a badass? Not because of what her job was, but because of what she was doing with it. So if I make content that empowers others, that's hardcore too. In a different way, but definitely still hardcore. This was my game changer. That's when I realized the biggest reason we struggle to change, even when we know we want to, is not what others think of us. It's how we think of ourselves. Yes, of course, we're scared of being judged by others, but we are terrified of letting go of an identity that we've grown comfortable with. Leader, problem solver, badass. Our fear of missing who we are now is what's stopping us from becoming who we want to be. It's not the job that made you who you are. You had those qualities before you got the job, and you'll have those qualities after you leave. I had it backwards. Being a sailor didn't make me a badass. I am a badass, and that's why I became a sailor in the first place. I've learned that we need to separate our identity from our job to realize we are not what we do for a living. It's only a job. Just like that woman who used her filmmaking to create empowering content, you too can take whatever you love about your current identity into your new field or next stage of life. Finally figuring this out was the last push I needed to make the change that had been keeping me from living my dream life. And that's just what I did. Now I spend my time traveling the globe, shooting videos that bring science to a broader audience and empower women around the world. If there's a big change that you want to make, but you can't quite bring yourself to do it, here's some questions I find useful. First, what is it about yourself you're afraid you're going to miss? For me, obviously, it was my badassery. What is it for you? And second, how can you incorporate that element of yourself into your new field or next stage of life? For me, I love to highlight women in the sailing and science community. What does that look like for you? Change what you do, not who you are. Your identity is not an obstacle. It is a beautiful opportunity. An opportunity for you to bring your unique twist on things by incorporating your strengths into this new role. I'm telling you, you may be way closer to your dream life than you think. I know I was. And perhaps not all changes are possible right now, but many changes are. And the ones that keep us up at night are the changes we know are achievable, if only we are brave enough to try. Thank you.